Moving on to another story in today's papers, and the Post Office inquiry continued this week. Yesterday, we heard from one of the senior directors at the company, Angela van der Bogerd, who claimed to be truly sorry for the devastation caused by the Horizon scandal.
Well, van der Bogerd worked for the Post Office from 1985 to 2020 and personally handled many complaints by the sub-postmasters, but told the inquiry that she cannot recall all of the emails alerting her to the problems. Well, joining us now is the solicitor representing the victims of the scandal, Albert Harwood. Albert, yesterday we heard from Angela van der Bogerd. She said, "I'm truly sorry for the devastation caused to you, your family and friends." That being said, she seems to have a very selective memory. What did you make of her responses to those questions?
Well, good morning, David. Morning, Sarah. Thank you for having me back. I mean, we've spoken to our clients following her giving evidence. And obviously we were sitting in there, and we already know what her credibility is like, that she is lying. Our clients were shocked. She wouldn't refuse. She refused to give a proper, full apology.
It was very much qualified, wasn't it?
It was completely qualified. It was meaningless in a sense. And again, it wasn't accepting any responsibility. It was insulting, basically, to us. Our clients were very pleased to see Mr. Beer, counsel for the inquiry, forensically questioning her and pushing her. But in terms of an apology,
I mean, there's an awful lot of people during this inquiry and other inquiries, think about the COVID inquiry as well, as an example, who have very, very bad memories, aren't there? I mean, how much can be achieved when somebody says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just don't remember. I don't recall that."
Well, I mean, in terms of credibility, we already know from back in the general litigation order hearing, she was found by Lord Justice Fraser to be lying then. So we know that she wasn't going to be probably telling the truth. So what do we learn from it? She has to be there because she's a key player in the Post Office scandal. So
I mean, she's almost got Post Office running through her blood, hasn't she?
She is. This is one of the things. It's the protection of the corporate brand, which just seems to play through her evidence. But you can actually learn things by. I mean, she's been found out by counsel to the inquiry. Could basically prove that she wasn't telling the truth. And I think we can learn as much from that as we can from someone telling the truth.
It's been a while since we've caught up. Just in terms of the evidence that's been given, we had Susan Crichton, also a former senior lawyer at the Post Office between 2010 and 2013. She talked about these bugs in Horizon by June 2013. This date keeps changing all the time. It was 2017, they said, they first identified this, and yet they continued with those prosecutions. Now it transpires it may well have been earlier, 2013.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is the key thing, is that people clearly did know, and, there has been a cover-up, and this needs to be brought to light. People were saying they didn't know things, and they were giving evidence to the Select Committee. They were giving evidence to court hearings, and they were basically misleading.
But they were also selective in their language, weren't they? Because they didn't want to call them bugs. They wanted to call them branch exceptions. Surely they're bugs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's been lots of play on words. I mean, yesterday we saw Angela van der Bogerd talking about the knowledge of the Fujitsu knowing about the access and distinguishing that between the Fujitsu and the Post Office. I think there's lots of play on words, which is previously they haven't had to do, but now they're being called to account. They're having to actually start to explain this. And this is where the word playing starts.
Yeah, and we know that she was copied into multiple emails for a very long time about remote access. There's plenty of evidence to show that. She says she didn't knowingly do bad things. I did the best I could to the best of my ability. I mean, the question is, the best for whom?
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is that you're talking about a very senior person who's on an extremely high salary, and you can't just turn around and say, I was doing my best. I mean, clearly, she knew things, she misled. There is no excuse from...
Yeah, and ultimately that led to people being wrongfully convicted and serving time in jail. And Paula Vennell's next. Then that's going to be a big...
And just going back to that, if I may, just in terms of this lady, she personally handled many of these sub-postmasters and mistresses. So what does that say about the handling of those people, if that's the response she gives?
I mean, one of our clients was was dealt personally by her, Jennifer Adele, one of our clients, and for her watching this witness now, it's anger, I think, as well, and just she's played a personal role. And again, it's this thing, it's this protecting the brand seems to be the main criteria, which we can't really understand. It's hard to understand the reasoning behind the actions of some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly tragic. I saw one former sub-postmaster yesterday describe her as being hard as stone, actually pretty hard to sit through some of that evidence yesterday for those whose lives have been turned upside down and destroyed in many cases.
Yeah. Albert, thank you so much for coming in
very much,
once again. That's Albert Harwood from Howe & Co.